Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Jonah and the Pod. Today, we have a very special guest.
Very special guest.
Very, very special. I sound a bit nasally. I apologize for that, but it's just back to the first episode of the podcast. Sounded the same. So today we have a guest, just a guest, who I've actually been getting a bit close to recently, I think, unfortunately. He is the AV guy at our church. That's all he has to offer. So.
I hope that's not all people know him as the AV guy.
No, he has I would say you and I have a very similar heart. Very different minds though, because you're obviously much smarter than I am, and you're very business minded and like that kind of stuff, which is good with your heart because then we'll get into that kind of stuff. But everyone, please welcome Marco.
It's a pleasure to be here. This has been a long time coming.
It has been a long time coming. He's hard to get a hold of.
Busy man, what can I say?
I have to pay the big bucks for this guy.
No, I'm just always tired. That's all.
I'm always tired. You're always busy. Or tired.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for finally coming on.
It's good to be here. It actually feels so cool. Hey, I love it. The other side of the screen. It's cool.
Yeah, honestly, it's better if we just record that rather than us.
Yeah, it looks sick. You guys should see this setup. I like the lights.
If you don't know, I mean, you guys probably don't know, but Marco was the reason we have these lights. Marco gave us the lights. Yeah. So we'll get into it. So today we're going to go back to, I think, the testimony sort of podcast that we used to go. Because Marco has a very interesting story. From what I've heard, I haven't actually heard it all. I've heard some of it because I'm sure. I think there was one time where I just asked you like questions that normal people wouldn't ask.
Oh yeah.
But that's true. The Jonah special. So
that's it.
So yeah, I have a list of things, but I'm gonna let you take control. Actually, first introduce yourself about who you are and like what you do now. My intro wasn't sufficient.
Okay. I feel like this is like when you go into a meeting for the first time and everyone's like going around, or like the first aid course, they do that. Anyway, yeah. So my name's Marco. We go to the same church. We serve in the same team, in the AV team. I came here by here I mean Australia, as a very young kid at like 6 years oldish. English was not my first language. It was my fourth language.
Fourth?
Yeah. So yeah, you couldn't tell. Hey, I'm true blue Aussie. But yeah, so I don't know. What else do you want to know?
What do you do?
What do I do? Currently, I have I do a business. So I've got an NDIS company. So we provide disability services. We also do property maintenance work. Yeah, that's the main thing. That's the big thing at the moment. I've done a few different things before over the last over a decade. And yeah, I've been doing this for the last 3 years or so, 3 or 4 years. Yeah.
Nice. Any like hobbies or things you like to do out of enjoyment?
Yeah, hobbies. Sport would be probably the biggest one, but I haven't been able to play for a while. But hopefully that's changing now. Yeah, so sport is a big one. Grew up playing a lot of sport, played for school and things like that. So especially soccer, that's the main one. And then music, gaming, tech, just hanging out with friends. Things like that. I feel like as I grow older, the biggest hobby is really just hanging out, just chilling, good combos, things like that. I think that's the
goal.
That's a good time. You know what I mean?
Good hangout, yeah.
That's a good hangout.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a fairly good overview. Is there anything that you sort of aspire to? I know you're very old, but anything you want to be older? Like, the question, what do you want to be when you're older? By the way, I'm going to be very it's just natural for me to be rude or whatever it is to Marco.
He's naturally a rude person.
It's out of love, all right?
Yeah. I don't know which camera to look at, man. All right.
Look at this one.
This one?
Yeah.
Your one?
Yeah.
Okay. What do I want to be when I grow up?
Yeah.
When I grow up. I want to, I don't know. I think the goal, honestly, I feel like this is one of the things that hasn't, in the last, few years or more than a few years really, hasn't changed as much. It's always, I think the goal for me was always not to just chase after work, but it's to, in terms of work, to get to a stage where you have that freedom to spend time with family and friends and to have the priority being, ministry and church rather than working. And then when you get a chance to, to be in ministry or whatever. So I think that's my goal in general with work is to, or in life really, to focus on doing whatever I need to be able to have that freedom and have that time for what's important. And to me, what's important is obviously God first and foremost, and in terms of, church ministry, things like that, and then family. So obviously I'm not married yet, don't have kids yet, but God willing, that's the goal, to be able to just, not spend most of your life at work, but to spend most of your life with, the people you love, doing the things you love.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can get into, I'm going to let you take control, like I said. You want to do your testimony? Or you wrote down family story, testimony. So is that like different things?
Yeah, so they connect. They connect. I think not many people actually know this, but the story of when I say family story, but it's basically like a large portion of it is our journey to Australia. So I don't think many people know that we actually came to Australia as refugees. So my parents fled war in Iraq and things like that. They went to Iran, and then from there came to Australia. So I was actually born overseas. I was born in Iran, and lived there for 4 or 5 years, and then we came to Australia. So it's that's the I think that, to be honest with you, those years were so, even though I was so young, thinking back now, those years were the years that literally changed our lives. You know what I mean? Like if we hadn't come to Australia right now, we'd be living, in a Muslim country, very foreign to how we are and how we want to live. Because all our extended family is here now. And even at the time when we were in Iran, they were here. So yeah, it would have been very much outsiders there. So, and that was how we were there. Like we lived there. Bear in mind, it's a Muslim country, right? So we're Christians living in a Muslim country. It's not like you can just go and hang out with, your church or your Christian friends. There's nothing like that, back in the, and keep in mind, this was back in before 2000, so back then it was, even stricter than it is now. If they heard you were Muslim, and not Muslim, if they heard you were Christian or something, then you could get imprisoned, you could get killed depending on the people. So yeah, it was a very the years that my family spent there were very much they were difficult, but they were God taught us a lot. And I think one of the biggest things that God taught us was to wait on Him, because it's interesting, because my dad obviously this is what I've been told, I don't remember this, but my dad always wanted to he wanted to leave. He was like, we should go to Australia, what's stopping us, let's go. But mum was always like, no, it's not the right time, and she just knew that it wasn't. I don't know why, but she just knew it wasn't.
Right.
And sometimes it's you just, something within you is telling, even though you're this is her husband telling her, father of her children telling her, hey, we should go. But something within her was like, no, this is not the right time. And they actually ended up living in Iran for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's why I was born, like, you know, pretty much halfway through that time.
So Iran, they speak like Farsi and stuff. So
they speak Farsi. Yeah.
So were you learning Arabic or Farsi or?
So we were speaking Arabic at home, and then in school I was learning Farsi. Wow. When I came to Australia, I was actually fluent in Farsi.
Oh, really?
I could speak Farsi probably better than Arabic. Like,
what the heck?
I was, and I remember that. Like, I remember being in school in Iran and going home, like, and just being able to speak fluently, even when I came here. But then I very quickly forgot it. So I guess technically, then, yeah, I can't speak it now, but I can understand some words. But yeah, so it was, Farsi was the language in Iran. But yeah, so. That was a massive thing. Like, thinking back and just growing up, that was a big thing that was kind of that my parents wanted to kind of remind us in our lives, is that just waiting on God, you know, waiting on the right time, waiting on God to lead and guide. You know, because sometimes I feel like, and like, honestly, even like in general now with everything, you know, with our work, with life, with decisions, we would like to say that, you know, God willing, or, you know, whatever God wants and His plan. But then we just go and do whatever sometimes, you know. So yeah, sometimes it's just about waiting. And that was rough, especially with the living conditions there. And obviously, like, we grew up poor. Like, we grew up, you know, I was the youngest of 4 children. I still am the youngest of 4 children. And like, we were so poor that my parents would, or my whole family really would, because I was the youngest, they would save like the banana just for me, like a banana, you know, like, or if we get a lolly or something, it'd be like, this is for Marco because I was a baby, you know. Yeah. Whereas now I'm like the one they think of last, or how the tables have turned. But yeah, so we were living in a foreign country, very poor. You know, we were studying, whatever, doing our best to just work and just live and get by until we felt that God was, you know, leading us into take that step to come to Australia. And obviously, keep in mind, it's knowing that, you know, making that move, taking that decision to come to Australia isn't like, it's not like you're booking a plane ticket. It's, we're going to have to leave everything we know behind, just take whatever clothes we're wearing and leave. And that's what happened. One day we started to sell everything. We told everyone that we were moving. And yeah, middle of the night, taxi came, took us to the airport, and that was that. Yeah. To be honest with you, it's a long story. There's obviously, it was over a period of months, so there's a lot that happened. But
how was the transition from Iran to Australia with nothing? Yeah. Did you have somewhere to go, or was it just like did you have family here or something like that, or it was just like?
Oh, so here, yeah. So we had family here, but we weren't in contact with them. So yeah, so we were. So what happened was, my dad was in touch with a pastor, like a well-known pastor. I forget his name. I think in Jordan, and he knows Pastor Frank and yeah. Pastor, you know, Saeed Owis and things like that. So they were the ones that, so he contacted them about us coming to Australia.
Right.
And so our contact people here were actually, Pastor Frank, and then also Nassim and Sanat. So, which is, I don't know, like, it's basically Julian and Laith's parents. So yeah, they were the first people we met here.
Just for you people that don't know,
yeah,
they're just people from our church.
Yeah, people from our church. Yeah. So Pastor Badil's brother,
yeah,
and his family. So they were the first people we met. So for me, it was, for all of us really, it was, you know, meeting new people that we never knew. Yeah, we didn't really know anyone. We didn't really know anyone here, as in contact with. Yeah,
for sure. That's so interesting. That's crazy. I like what you're saying about waiting, because I feel like a lot of times it is just like, especially in this day and age, it's like, you got to keep going. What are you doing? What are you striving for? And it's just like, just wait, just relax. And that's something that I've been trying to do recently. It's funny. There's like when I do, like right now I am waiting. I'm not sure what I'm waiting for, but it just like God is telling me to wait. But in that, it's like I'm also doing so much, but I'm still waiting. But then I've been feeling like a little bit like it's so these are the devil's lies, but it's like feeling a bit like useless, or like feeling a bit like, what are you doing with your life? Like it's all sort of meaningless what you're doing.
Right.
You got to like strive for something, do something, and I'm just like, I don't know. It's just like, but the thing is, I'm doing a lot, but I'm not doing things to actually further my career or further my ministries, further my future. I guess everything's just like right now, here and now, which is interesting. I thought it was that.
But yeah, there's nothing wrong with just taking that time to just slow down and just see where God leads your life. You know, and there's always like, I feel like sometimes we're really good at waiting, like procrastinating waiting. You know what I mean? So I think it also depends on what you're waiting, like how you're waiting. You know.
I think waiting in a biblical sense is actually just being still in God's presence.
Exactly.
Which is like what we all need to do.
That's right.
Pretty much always.
Every day, really. But yes, and that's the waiting that we're talking about. And I think what you said is perfect, because it's waiting, but you're waiting in God's presence.
Yeah.
You have that connection with God in that time. It's not like you're stepping back from everything, including God. You know, you got to still be in that.
Yeah.
And this
is actually the biggest time I've seen the most growth.
Yeah.
In that regard. Everything's taken a pause, but I think it's like God is brewing something in my life.
Exactly.
So that I can be ready for whatever's coming. So
cool. He's put you in the workship. He's working on you. It's cool. But it's interesting. And I think, like I was saying, waiting it can be easy sometimes if it's something we want to wait for, we're like not ready for. But sometimes, it's the opposite. We want to go do this and we want to go do that, or we want to we're saying, why not now? You know what I mean? But it's just, like, I don't know, like with us waiting in Iran, like you just don't know what happens if we left a year earlier, who knows what could have happened? Like we came, as refugees, I don't know, like it's weird. Like even now, like sometimes I hear, there's a whole, boat of refugees that arrived to Australia, and you're like, when you actually stop and think of what those people have actually gone through, it's like, I feel like people don't know. Like,
it's hard to know.
When you don't know. How would you know, right? Yeah. It's like, well, at least for our case, it was like, well, it's all just, secretive transports, and I remember we went to, or actually, before I say that, I'll continue that point. It's all like, you're moving between place to place in the middle of the night, changing cars, changing locations, and this is all managed by a person. So this is all managed by a person who, this is their job. That's what they do. They get people into countries. So, but it's scary. Like you're like, especially as a 5-year-old, hiding in a dark garage that's empty in the middle of the night in a foreign country like Indonesia or something. It's scary. Yeah. And obviously, when you're going from place to place that needs, you're going to go on the boat a lot. You know what I mean? And these boats aren't always big and like the cruise ships. They're like fishing boats, or they're like, it's weird. Like, container ships, and you're like, it's weird. It seems like a
movie.
Yeah, literally. Like thinking about it thinking back now, it literally feels like it was a movie.
That's crazy.
And it's crazy as well, because like time goes on and life goes on after that, and you kind of start to forget. You know what I mean? Like you forget where you've been and where you've come, what you've gone through, and how you've come to where you are now. And I think that's the big thing for me, because just stopping and just being like, man, like just got to be grateful. Like I'm so grateful for where we are, how we are here now, because of the journey that we went through. Just makes you appreciate, your life, because it was rough.
Okay. So for people that are watching, if you don't know Marco, he has I don't know if many people know this, because I feel like I've only learned this a bit recent. No, it would make sense with your business and stuff. If you don't know Marco, he has a heart for, I guess, what would be the word, like disadvantaged people, or like
people in need? Yeah,
people in need. Yes,
yeah,
probably better word.
Yeah, I think it kind of covers everyone.
Yeah. He has a heart for people in need. And my question to you is: would you accredit that heart for people in need from what you've come from?
100%. And it's not just come from, like, say, a foreign country or a poor country or a poor background. It's that's largely part of it, but also, seeing the effects of that, and seeing, experiencing, living, having family that are ill and people with disabilities, and obviously that's a big factor that affected my career now. But I feel like when you see that kind of stuff, when you see how people are in need, how they live, and how much it impacts them, and you see the joy that they can have when their lives improves in any way, even a small way, it gives you that push, that desire to try and reach as many people as you can, trying to help as many people as you can in any way you can. Yeah, definitely part of that. I think a big thing was, besides the experiencing the life overseas, a big thing was definitely mum. So when I was born in Iran, as soon as I was born, mum got sick. So really? And because she gave birth to me, that's why she got sick. Right. So it was all my fault.
Don't make me laugh about this kind of stuff.
So because I was born, her blood pressure just skyrocketed, and because of that, she lost her kidney. So then obviously, so she was on dialysis for a bit, and then she was able to get a heart transplant. She was able to get a kidney transplant. But back then she was very, very sick. Like, I remember I have distinct memories of mum just like literally lying on the floor a lot because she was so sick.
Was it in Iran?
In Iran. Yeah. So, one of the reasons she got sick from giving birth to me was because they told her you can't have any more kids. So she had 3 kids, and then the doctor said you cannot have any more kids, or you have a risk of death. But they wanted another kid for some reason. They were like, nah, like we really feel that God wants us to have another kid. Wow. So they had one, and she nearly died. And then the doctors were like, nah, like if you have another kid now, you were definitely dying. I don't know why, but I don't actually know the reason why, but yeah. So then they were like, okay, no more kids then. But yeah, so that's why she got sick. And then ever since then, she was sick her whole life. So she was on dialysis. She got a kidney transplant in Iran, and that actually was really good. Like, that lasted her probably around 12 or so years, 12, 13 years. And then back in 2009, she got tuberculosis. It was really bad. She was in hospital for like 3 months, but because they wanted to treat that, they had to stop the kidney medications, and so then her kidney obviously failed again. So then she was back on dialysis from 2009 for around 10 years.
Do you mind me asking what is tuberculosis?
Tuberculosis is a really, really strong infection, I believe. Yeah, I think she had it in her. I can't remember where she had it. But yeah, she had a really, really bad. It's a very, very strong disease or infection. So it's something that's like it can be fatal. So they really had to get it under control, and for them to do that, the meds can't be combined, and so they had to stop those meds. And like, you can imagine when someone, I don't know, try and imagine when someone, when this is the thing that's keeping you alive and healthy to a degree, and someone says we're going to have to stop that, then that in a few days you're going to have to go back to dialysis, and that's a killer. Yeah. I remember her specialist would say that, her kidney specialist would say that dialysis is like running around the block 5,000 times. Like, it's insane. It just, it's a 5-hour session on a machine that cleans your blood, takes your blood out, runs it through the machine, filters it out. And, it just takes it out of you. So then she was on that for a number of years. And then whilst she was on that as well, she got, a heart condition where she needed to get a heart valve transplant. And then she also had a spinal issue where basically her nerves in her spine started to crush her spinal column started to crush her nerves. And because it was in her neck, those nerves affect all your limbs. So gradually, she started to lose function and control in all her arms and legs, to the point where, like, she was pretty much bedridden and 24/7 care, and from doing like care for everything. Everything from feeding to even just adjusting in bed. Transferring, toileting, just everything, showering. So so that was, when she passed away in 2009, like she was, and the thing is they couldn't do, they wanted to operate, but they called it so late, the spinal thing, that they said, for us to do the spinal surgery, your heart is not stable. It's not stable enough for surgery. And then your spine isn't stable enough for us to do the heart surgery first. So it's like you're stuck. You know what I mean? And just, I don't know, sometimes I just think about it and like, imagine after all you've been through, all those years, trusting on God, waiting on Him, waiting for that sign to leave, a country that you felt like a foreigner there and you were in danger there, going through everything, and then at the end being like, one way or another, like, there's no solution to this. You're going to die. You know what I mean? And you're not just going to die eventually. You're going to suffer, every day in pain, no sleep, on all these meds that couldn't even like touch the pain, control the pain in any way. It was like, that's the end that you get. You know what I mean? It's like why? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why? Okay, like I trusted you in all of this, I waited on you. I let you, like, I was faithful, and growing up, Mum was like she was my role model. Like she was, if I was like wondering how I should deal with this, I think, what would Mum do? You know what I mean? Like, I know Mum would do this. Mum would say this. And so, we were very close. And especially because like I spent a lot of my time with her. When she got really, really sick, I had to stop going to church for a number of years, and Dad and I would just look after ourselves, because there was this whole thing about like, I made a promise to her that I would never put her in a nursing home. For as long as I could, I would, no matter what, I'd do it myself if I had to. Like I would never, not if I had to. Like we always did. And funnily enough, we never even got NDIS services. Like we never even applied for them. Yeah, we just did everything ourselves, even though we were offered services. And I think it was because like we never felt comfortable having a stranger look after Mum. We didn't think they would do it well. And like honestly, fair enough, because it was it was complex care. Anyway, but imagine like after all that, going through all that suffering and pain, but still trusting God, still putting your faith in Him. Like I remember it got so hard sometimes that like, she would feel like I can't do this anymore, But the only thing that would stop her from doing anything about it was she was like, I can't do that with God. I can't do that. After all He's done, I can't, let Him down in that way, And then at the end, it was like, you're still going to suffer, and you're going to, that's the end that you get.
So you're asking why. Have you, I assume you've thought about it, but do you have sort of a conclusion as to why you believe that God would allow that, or God would?
See, it's funny. I remember once, like a number of times, Mum would say that to me. She'd be like Marco, I can't. I physically cannot. Like imagine this, right? 3 days a week, going to hospital, waking up at 4 a.m., not coming back home till like 2 or 3 p.m., going on the dialysis machine for 5.5 hours. You feel like you've run 5 marathons. You come back, and by the time you come back home, you're smashed, like you're dead. You can't open your eyes. You can't do anything. And then on top of that, you haven't slept all night because you can't sleep because of your pain and things like that. So, and that's 3 days a week. So the next day, you can't really do much. You're trying to recover. By the time you slightly recover the next day, the following day, you're back in hospital and it's all over again. So it's like you got to a point where it's like, what am I doing this for? Like, it's not like, like for example, now we work hard, we do whatever, so that say the weekend we get to enjoy. It wasn't that case for her. She couldn't do that. It wasn't like I can, I'll go through this suffering, and then on these few days I can enjoy it. I can enjoy life. She couldn't, because those days weren't there. She didn't have those days where she was okay, especially towards the end, like the last few years. And the only thing that's the only thing she would say was stopping her from ending it was God and her family. So yeah, I remember times where she would say that, like, Michael, I can't do it. I cannot do it. And I'd be like, I'd try and encourage her, right? As you would do. But I remember, like, when you started to get really, really bad, I remember, like, I'd leave the room, I'd go outside and I'd look at my dad and be like, I don't know why. Like, I cannot, like, I'm saying because, you can't give up because of X, Y, Z. But then I'd leave the room and I'd be like, man, if I was in her shoes, I don't think I could do that. I wouldn't be able to take my own advice. But she kept pushing through, right? And then it was like, and I, like, honestly, I would always, like, I got to a stage where I'd be like, you know what? Like, yeah, why? Like, what is the purpose of this? Like, if I was to step back for a bit, try and look at the bigger picture, what is the point? It's not like you could say that, she couldn't even go to church. So she couldn't even share her experiences with someone at church and maybe bless them or things like that. But you know what? So like, it's weird because I feel like I always had that faith that, yes, there was a purpose behind it. I couldn't see it at the time though, and we both believe that. Like, we both believe that, yes, there was a purpose. We just couldn't see it.
You're saying you both, as in you and your mom?
Yeah, myself and mum. And I'm sure the rest of the family were the same, but we couldn't see why. Like, I don't know. We just could not see why. But then, it was only until she passed away that I realized why. And so I'll give you a bit of backstory. So a lot of my extended family are Catholics. So when we were in Iran, there was this whole issue, like, with mum's eldest brother, so my oldest uncle. And so when we came to Australia, like, we weren't, like, didn't have any contact with anyone. There wasn't, like, when I say there was an issue with him, the story was that she called him once and he thought she was calling him, to ask for help or for money, and he just hung up on her, right? And mum was like, okay, all good, She came to Australia, or we came to Australia, and then, long story short, we ended up somehow getting back into contact with each other somehow, just honestly by chance. Like, my brother ran into them one day and we started contact. So, but that uncle, the eldest uncle, was very, he had this thing with mum. He would, like, if she was visiting her parents, at one point he was living with them. If he would come, like, if he was coming back home, like, he'd open the door, he'd see them there, he'd see mum there, he'd leave straight away. Like, he did not want to be anywhere near her, did not want to speak to her at all, didn't want to have anything to do with her. Until, and you know what? It's funny because through all that, mum was always so nice to him. Like, when she'd see him, she'd be like, hey, how are you? Like, whatever. He wouldn't even give her a chance. Like, he would just leave. But she would always ask, her parents or her siblings how he's doing. And mum was the only daughter with 6 brothers.
Oh, wow.
So they had a fairly big family. But yeah, it was always like, and I think he would hear about that. Like, he'd hear, oh, she's asking about you, how you're going. And I don't know if that was the reason, but one day he just rocks up at our house with this massive barbecue. And I think that was like his way of apologizing. Yeah, he's making peace. And you know what's funny? They went from him never speaking to us, and especially her, to, by the end, they were the closest people, the closest siblings in the family. He would come, like, almost every day, at least a few times a week he'd be at our place just hanging out. And so through all these years in Australia, like my mum was always praying for her family, praying for her siblings. And in mum's funeral, being the eldest uncle, he got up and said something. So, and don't quote me on this, but what he said was one of the things he said was along the lines of, you know, I used to see how much she was suffering, and you know, I would think to myself, there is no way I could do that. Like, I cannot do I can't go through a fraction of what she's going through and still be as happy as she was and as joyful as she was. And he said, you know, now thinking back, he's like, after seeing what she's been through and how she went through it and seeing how she was even on her deathbed in hospital, he's like, the only thing I can attribute that to is because she was a believer. Yeah, well, that's the only thing that I could attribute. Like, that's the only reason I could find to explain how she was in all of this, in all of these struggles, all of these experiences, all of this suffering. The only thing that would make sense was because that she believes in God. She has that faith in God. So even that alone, I think, is a purpose, you know, is a reason for all of that. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things. But yeah, I think in a very unique way, God used that suffering and those challenges that she went through to bless people and to teach them and to help them. People that either heard about it, people from church, people that, you know, were very close to us from church as well, who'd always, you know, see her and visit and things like that. But especially her family, I think that made a massive difference. And honestly, as I don't know if this is selfish or not, but I feel bad for it, but I feel like it obviously helped me a lot, you know, seeing her go through all of that and going through that all with her. I think it made me who I am today. You know, it taught me everything that I am today. She taught me everything I know today.
This should change the course of your life.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. And you know what? It really helps put things into perspective as well. Like, you know, we sometimes go through life and go through circumstances and we're like, you know, this is the worst thing ever. I can't get through this. But I think having that experience, it's like, hey, this is not as bad. You know what I mean? Yeah. This is doable, you know? Yeah. So it taught me a lot.
The cool thing is that you're saying it's selfish and whatnot. I don't think it's selfish. I understand where you're coming from, but obviously I didn't know your mum, and I probably shouldn't be talking on her behalf. But I would say that she would have went through everything she did for the sake of who actually came out of that. And obviously, like I said, I don't know her, but I think my mum would do the same. She would suffer to the point of death for the sake of her children actually becoming whatever it is, close to God, or
definitely
being better. So I'm glad that you don't see it as pointless or like, I don't know, you're not asking the question why anymore. Obviously it's fine to ask why, because it's very tough, right? And
like, you're seeing the person you love the most go through the absolute worst thing they can go through. Yeah.
And if you weren't asking why, then I'd be a bit more concerned.
Yeah, like, you're heartless, man. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. So, but it's cool that you came from a point of really asking why. You said you still understood there was a purpose. You did not what the purpose was. But now, coming out of that, you see the purpose. And I'm sure you don't even see the whole reason as to why it was. Yeah,
that's right. Sure, there are things that, you know, to this day, like, I hear some things and people, you know, speak about her and, you know, mention things. And it's like, oh, that's so cool. Like, well, there you go. That just goes to show how God was using that. And I think that's applicable to everything. Like it's so hard sometimes, but, you know, just remembering that God is so much bigger than we are, you know, and his plans and his ways and his wisdom, his power and might is just so much more than we can imagine. And we're trying to think about this one situation that we're going through, And God's like, this is a tiny part of this whole massive plan. Just wait. You know what I mean? Just wait. And you might never know the reason or the whole reason or all the reasons, but it helps so much, hey? Like, I don't know, sometimes this is bad, but sometimes people tell me that like
I feel like I already know what you're going to say.
What am I going to say?
I don't know, like they're going through something or something.
No. It's like something happens, let's say with me or someone close to me, and they're like, "Why isn't this affecting you that much? Like, why are you not? Right. Yeah, like so why are you not? A whole different route, no. It's like someone tells me something, I'm like, nah, that's nothing, bro. Relax. Just dismiss it. Yeah. No. It's like, why isn't this affecting you so much? Like, it should annoy you or upset you or stress you out. And it's honestly just because I've seen what God can do. I've seen how He is. I've experienced God, and I can trust Him. You know, I can trust that He knows what He's doing. And man, like there are people in my life right now that are close people to me that are going through some really, really tough times. And, you know, like circumstances where when I imagine myself in that situation, like my heart not just me, like when I put myself in their shoes, just think about what they're going through. Like, you know how you get that pain in your stomach, the pain in your gut. It's like I can't imagine how much that would hurt. And then, but you just know that even in that situation, there's a purpose. God knows what He's doing, and and somehow it's going to be good. In some way, you know, who would ever think that illness and suffering and pain, you know, and disability would be a good thing? But there was so much good that came out of that. And I honestly think that Mum wouldn't take it away. Like she would, you know, be experiencing her firsthand herself, all the blessings and experiencing God through that. She wouldn't change a thing, I reckon. Because He brought us so much closer to God. Like when I think of Mum, I remember all day, every day, she was like singing worship songs and listening to sermons. She couldn't go to church for years, but she was closer to God than I was, and I was going to church. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's funny because I want to do a podcast on. This sounds sadistic, but death has been on my mind recently. But death in a positive way. And that sounds really dumb. And I want to do a proper podcast on it. But I love that you said that because it's I'm trying to word it to not be insensitive, but I want to get to a point where it's like I want to know that this could be my last day. How am I actually living my life? And it seems like your mum sort of understood that it could be her last day, but the thing that she wanted to do the most was get close to God and take care of her family.
Yep,
probably in that order.
Yep, well said. Real literally. Yeah.
And that's the point where I want to get to, and not become sick or like whatever it is. If that's God's will for me, then so be it. But not become sick in that regard, but actually understand like today could be my last day. And I want to go, I'm going to try it literally from, this funny thing is today till, I'm going to do it for a week. Before I sleep, I'm going to say, God, I know that I might not be able to wake up tomorrow, but I hope that the day that I just had was the way that I want to spend the last day that on earth. And I think it would change my perspective. I'm hoping that it will change my perspective, and I'll start actually being more active in the day and doing, I don't know, more of what God would want me to do. Anyway, that's a whole different part, because this is, it's, when you said that, it's just like, wow, because God has really put that on my heart and mind recently. And I've been speaking to someone about it as well. Yeah. So
you know what else on top of that as well? Like I want to say that that's how I like to live my life. Probably not the case. Like I don't think I'm ever going to get to that stage where I'm like, yeah, I've done, my best in that day. But on top of that, on top of like living every day as if it was your last, I'd also I want the day that I do pass away for me to be like I'm ready. Like I've fulfilled my purpose in this world for what God wants me to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it's crazy because when I remember when it was Mum's last day in hospital, what happened was she was on meds that were helping her, right? And they said to me, like, they said, look, she's on meds, it's helping with pain. Keep in mind, she had to get like half her foot amputated and all this other stuff. Like, yeah, it was crazy. But so she was in a lot of pain. She was obviously suffering, and she was on meds. These meds were helping her in some way, and it was also like prolonging her life in a way. And you got to a stage where they're like, well, look, we obviously there's no like healing from this. Like she's not gonna get better medically anyway in their eyes. But it was like, well, when her body gets like really slows down, is like she's going to pass, you know, we can give her something to help her just help her body calm down so she doesn't feel any pain and things like that. And obviously, like, I have an idea of how some meds work, and I knew that when they give her those meds, it's going to make it a lot quicker as well. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's not to end her life, but it will help ease it and to kind of, yeah. So, and it was obviously a massive thing, and this decision was on my shoulders. Like, I had to make this decision when I felt it was right. And man, that was rough. Hey, like, this is the most important person to you in your life, right? Like, the most important person in your life. To the point where if I could, I would replace her in a heartbeat, literally a heartbeat. But then now it's your decision to help her go, like, pass on, in a way of making it comfortable. And I remember I was like, wow, okay. And I remember I kept asking Mum, I was like, how are you feeling? Like, are you okay? Like, what would you want? What do you want? And it was always, you know, I put it off. I said no. Until like, obviously, like, it was a massive decision. And I was like, God, like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is a massive decision. Yes. And then I asked her once, I said, Mum, are you okay? Like, how are you feeling? Like, what do you want? What are you thinking? She looked up at me, like, weakly, like, from her bed. I was standing next to her bed, kind of like sitting beside her a bit. And she looked up at me, like, weak. Her eyes were closed. She was so tired, so sick. Her eyes were so heavy, but she just lifted them up enough just to look at me. And she said, Marco, like, I want to go home.
Yeah. Wow.
And I just knew that wasn't our home. Yeah. And that was her last night.
That's crazy.
Like, imagine getting to a stage where even death has no hold of us, has no control over us, where we know that we've done everything we could. We know that we've lived, you know, honoring God and keeping Him the center of our lives and you know, glorifying Him in everything that we do, and get to a stage where you're like, yeah, like, you know, this is it. I'm ready to go home, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's in everything I do. Like, I'd love to one day be like, you know, when I am faced with that, be like, yeah, like, this is in a way a good thing. Like, I'm going home. I'm gonna be with our Father. You know what I mean? Like, with my dad. Like, that's, yeah.
It's I think the way to sort of understand it maybe is like, it's so difficult to understand, but it's like you're here on earth for other people, or you're here on earth for God and other people. Yeah. You go to heaven, sort of. Obviously, it's God, but it's sort of for yourself.
For yourself, yeah.
As in, like, you now, all the work that you put in on earth, but that wasn't for you. But what you get in return is for you. Actually, it's crazy because I was reading 1 Peter recently. Things that I don't know if it's actually in 1 Peter, but I'm going to try find it. And it's just so poetic. I I think it's 4. Yeah, it was literally just maybe it wasn't Peter, but it was literally just saying like, you're gonna suffer on earth for my sake. But but it will be like, you don't do it for yourself.
Yes.
But you'll like
your reward or your thing is more there.
Yeah, your reward will be when you go to heaven. And
yes.
Like, it's such a weird mindset, because it's like we don't want to do it for the things that we will get in heaven, but we are promised that we will get something when we go to heaven. Maybe. Look, I'm just going to read this part because I think it is. Maybe I'll just read it all. It's not too long.
Yeah.
1 Peter 4, verse 12 to 19. I actually haven't read it just now, so it might not be the thing that I'm looking for, but
we'll find out.
We'll find out. So 1 Peter 4, 12 to 19. Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you, but rejoice in so far as you share Christ's suffering, that you may also rejoice and be glad when his glory is revealed. If you are insulted for the name of Christ, you are blessed, because the Spirit of glory and of God rests upon you. But let none of you suffer as a murderer or a thief or an evildoer or as a meddler. Yet if anyone suffers as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God in that name. For it is time for judgment to begin at the household of God. And if it begins with us, what will be the outcome for those who do not obey the gospel of God? And if the righteous is scarcely saved, what will become of the ungodly and the sinner? Therefore, let those who suffer according to God's will entrust their souls to a faithful Creator while doing good. So it's not what I was actually looking for, but it's still like...
It still works.
Yeah. It's still such like a...
What was that last part again? Let those who suffer...
Therefore, let those who suffer according to God's will entrust their souls to a faithful Creator while doing good. And I said something on this, and sorry, I literally said, because I always write when I talk about it, but I said, I always struggle to read about suffering and persecution, because I know that the difference between what Peter is referring to is so different to anything that I could even imagine going through. Makes me feel bad in a sense. I don't think it's healthy. What do you guys think? And I don't know, like, this is another thing that I've been sort of thinking about after I read this, is like, what is, like, is suffering just sort of subjective to the person going through it? Or is suffering actually like, is there a level of suffering that we, it's going to sound messed up, that we should be reaching the closer we get to God? As in, like, he's talking about suffering for Christ now. It's a sort of a blessing in him. But is it like my suffering? I've gotten sick a few times. I've barely been persecuted for my beliefs. Am I actually doing the right thing, or is it just like God has blessed me that I don't need to suffer? You know, it's such a
like,
weird,
am I meant to be suffering more, or does that show that I'm not as close to God as I want
but it's
to
like, does that mean I'm chasing suffering? My brother loves to say that I chase suffering.
Oh, okay, I get you.
Like, my brother loves to say that I'm chasing suffering, and I'm like, because it's like, you always do like things that are hard and all this. I'm like, I don't think I'm chasing suffering.
You're just chasing the things that you feel like you need to chase.
But then I'm like, am I not chasing enough? Like what I should be chasing, which will cause more suffering. Am I actually being comfortable? I don't know. It's such a weird thing.
I feel like it's...
Because I would boldly say that what your mum went through, even what you went through by seeing all that, was genuine suffering. Might not be persecution from other people and whatnot, but it's still suffering. I've never been through, and it's a blessing from God that I've never been through something like that.
And I think, suffering can be different for everyone. Like, it's not, that doesn't necessarily have to be that level of like physical suffering or illness and things like that. I think it could be different suffering. So just because one person isn't experiencing that level of suffering or that type of suffering, doesn't mean that they're not suffering or that they might not suffer in the future.
It's just interesting. Whenever I read in God's word, it's just like, I feel so, like there's a part of me that feels like so pathetic and weak. But I'm like, the thing is, I know because I have God, I know that whatever does come, like I'll be able to. Not I will be able to, but God will be strong in my weakness.
Exactly, and I think also, like, I think we don't need to overthink it. Sometimes it's like if we're doing our part of trying to be as close to God, doing what we need to do, then He will bring whatever He wants to bring.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. We're not really going to be chasing suffering. We're going to be chasing getting closer to Him, and whatever comes, whatever that brings, it'll bring. I hope you're not chasing getting sick in that.
So I'm always sick, just like trying to get sick.
You're fake snoring.
Like eating dirt or something like that. No, I don't do that. To be honest, like I don't know. Maybe it's just like a weirdness in my head, but I've never, in the suffering that I've had, I've been through a little bit. I can tell you off camera. I'm not going to say on camera, but like everyone knows about my health and whatnot. I've never really blamed God for any of that. I'm like, God, why?
Yeah.
And the other stuff that I've been through, I've never been like, God, why? To be honest, like maybe it's because I'm hard on myself, but in a way, it's like it's actually positive sometimes. Sometimes it's very not positive, but it's like I understand that I literally deserve the worst.
Yeah, yeah.
The fact that this is the suffering I'm getting is far greater. I mean,
it's far better than
far better than like what I actually should be suffering, which is eternal death.
Exactly.
Eternal like suffering. So I don't know. I praise God that I've never. It's weird. I praise God I've never gone through like major suffering. But also praise God that when I have been, I've never sort of blamed Him. I've probably asked why and whatnot, but I think that's healthy.
I think that's
why I put my fist up at Him.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
No. I think like I don't know. I think you know what? Actually, I feel like I do that quite a bit. Like quite a bit, but like it's not in a way like I don't blame God. Like just like you said, you know, you don't ask why. Like you know, God, why would you do this to me? Like this is not fair. But I ask why to like as in try to like. I think like think it through, like as in process in a way, you know, like
what's the reason?
Yeah, like try to see what's the bigger picture, like try to see what the reason is. And most of the time you can't, you know, most of the time you think, nah, I can't think of any reason why this might be a good thing. But then years down the track, you figure out why, you know, and this is like even in work, like even in business, in anything, it's like, I remember there was once that I had this really, really cool idea. It was going to be very expensive, but whoever I spoke to was like, this is amazing. Like even the potential clients for it, it was for universities. And I met with all these big heads of universities and they were all like, this is great. Like, you know, and then it just didn't work. Like we just didn't end up even doing it. There was a lot of doors closed. And the biggest one was financially, like the thing was going to cost $1 million to build. It was extremely, like it was impossible. But obviously there could have been ways around that, but it just did not work. And I remember I was like, man, like why? Like this would have been so good, not just for me, but like this, like it was designed to help a specific need, and it was amazing for that need. And as far as everyone else was saying, it was amazing for it. But it just didn't work. And you know what? Like, and I was like, I wonder why. Like, I wonder what would be the reason for this. And sometimes you can't in that moment. You're like, how could you? Like, that seems like a very good thing, right? But then, like thinking about it now, or years after, I'd be like, man, like if that had worked, I maybe wouldn't have been doing what I'm doing now. I wouldn't have, like, something as simple as that. You know, you don't know what this might be stopping you from doing in the future. You know, this God, it's as simple as that. God has a plan for you, and this might just be getting in the way of that. So yeah, but especially if it's something really good in our eyes, it's hard. And so yeah, it's just staying away though from blaming God. That's the
and this sort of ties into I've been reading 1 Samuel recently. I've went through 3 books that I've been reading, but I'm reading 1 Samuel recently, and I just got up to David. And do you know when David was first mentioned in the Bible? obviously it's 1 Samuel because I said that, but like the story.
No.
So it was literally the first time he's mentioned is when he's getting anointed as king.
Oh yeah.
not like anointed as in he's like, you will be king one day.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
That's the first mention. Yeah.
Because for some reason I always thought like he did David and Goliath, like the David and Goliath thing and all that stuff, and he did all these things before. You can answer it if you want. He did that all before he got anointed as king. But what God was doing was he was actually, firstly, he saw his heart, and it talks about it like he went through all of his brothers, and it's like, nope, you're not gonna know. Like you, like you sure you have a good structure, you're whatever, handsome. Like on the outside, you look like you will be a good king. Yeah. He went through all of his brothers, and then he goes to David, and he's like, but your heart is actually what is needed. And when you said that, it just reminded me of it because I didn't really think about this before, but it's like I don't know how old David was when he got anointed as king, but those years, it was probably just God preparing his heart. Obviously, it doesn't say this. This is not what the Bible says, but I would assume there were things that maybe David, like God stopped David from doing because like
there was a greater plan, there was a greater purpose.
He was a shepherd.
That's right.
There was times where he was just taking care of sheep when like I don't know, he could have been at war or something like that, right? But David probably understood like, all right, God has something in his plan. His heart was like, think about it, David was literally fighting lions and bears, and he was just still a shepherd, which if you're fighting a lion and a bear, like get going. But David's heart was so in line with God's that one day God actually, he looked at the heart first, and he was preparing David for that. And then once God saw, okay, David's heart is aligned with mine, or it's
the right time. It's right.
Then I'm going to start doing the miraculous with him. I'm going to start doing the insane stuff with him, and not for his name, but because he is the right person to actually glorify my name, that's the place that I want to get to. And I think, obviously, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to get to a point of where David is with his heart. I hope I get to Jesus' place with his heart. I know that's not going to happen, but that's the place I strive towards. But hopefully with this time, like I said before, with me waiting, and
I was just going to say that. It's like that answers your question. Like that answers your thing.
With this like brewing and whatnot, I pray that one day my heart will be aligned with God's in a place where I can do like miraculous things. And it doesn't have to be to the extent of what David did, where his name is living on for generations, but maybe it is just actually helping that one person that if my heart wasn't aligned with God, then like God wouldn't have used me in that scenario, whatever it is.
You wouldn't be suitable for his plan.
So that's the goal, and hopefully God is brewing something up.
100%. I mean, and that's something you got to trust. If we're spending time with God, if we're putting him first in our lives, then he is using us for a purpose. He is doing something in our lives. And sometimes even if just like you said, even if it's you're a shepherd, you're shepherding sheep, you're doing something simple, or doing nothing at all, like just in a time of stillness. Even that, God's using that. He's using that time, for something bigger. It's just insane. I've been using God's word a lot recently, as in this podcast. It's just because God's word is just undefeated. It's so good, and it just helps so much in everything.
So I think we'll go back to your story. So let's recap so far about what you have. It's funny. The funny thing is you actually haven't spoken about you at all. But so far, the things that you have sort of said is that your parents lived in Iraq, and then they moved to Iran as refugees. So they moved to Iran as refugees?
They migrated, yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty much as refugees, but it's next door, so it's a lot easier than, especially at that time, because they left to Iran with a lot of people. It was very common to either go to, I don't know if it was Turkey or something else, or Iran. And so, so they it wasn't like the journey to Australia, but yeah, they did migrate there.
Yeah. And then so you were born in Iran,
Mm-hmm.
and when you were born, your mom got sick in Iran, and then we said 6 years later.
Around 5 or so years later, yeah.
Yeah. So you moved to Australia, and as you're in those 5 years, your mom is very sick. She has kidney transplant in those 5 years in Iran.
Yeah. So after I was born, so I was born in 94, and then in 99 or 2000, that's when we left Iran. So in those few years there, that's when she was very sick from the beginning, and then she got I don't know why I keep saying heart transplant, the kidney transplant, and lived there with that until she decided to leave. And then, you know what? Bear in mind as well, when they decided to leave, she was still very sick.
Really?
It wasn't like, she was waiting to get better, and that's why she was waiting. That's why she was saying, like God's not, I don't feel like God's, pushing us to leave right now, but it's just because she was sick. The time that she felt was right was when she was actually probably the most sick.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Post-transplant, the most sick.
Was there a time where she was actually healthy after?
So I think after she had the kidney transplant, she felt a lot better initially, but then like a little bit, I think it helped a little bit because it was better than not having a kidney, obviously. But she was still sick. And then the reason I know she was still very sick is because I remember her being very sick. But then also because when they left Iran, so mum and my sister left first. So I've got 2 sisters and a brother. And he goes girl, boy, girl, boy. So it was the sister that's just older than me. So mum went with her. Mum took her. It was funny though, because she was going to take me. She wanted to take me being the youngest. She was, I was still like 5 years old or something. So she wanted to take me. But then when she asked, she's like, honestly, I remember this. She came up to me. She was like, Marco, we pack up, like we're going to go. I don't even think she said pack up, but she's like, we're going to go. We're going to leave. And I looked at her and I was like, I looked at her and I looked at Dad and I was like, but I want Dad to come with us. And as soon as I said that, it made her just switch and be like, fine, stay with your dad. I'm taking Carmen. That's what she did. And so she left me there. She left me. She left me. And she took Carmen, my older sister, not the elder sister, but my older sister. So, and that was like a massive thing, because this is jumping ahead a lot, but when they came to Australia, when they got here, because her youngest son was only 5 years old and he wasn't with her, it helped the process a lot, because they could see it's not good for a 5-year-old to be separated from the mum. So that actually helped a lot. But I remember so it got to a stage, because they still came as refugees, but it got to a stage where they saw her and they saw how sick she was, and she had to get airlifted to Sydney, so to Australia. So she was so sick that she was airlifted by helicopter, because otherwise she was going to die. And then when she got to Australia, they were like, the doctors looked at her, and she tells me, I remember she told me this. She was like, this female doctor looked at me and she was so angry. She was so angry at me. She was like, why? Like, how could you do this? Why would you do this? Like, well, you came, she said that, she was like, you came within a hair's width away from death. Yeah. And she was like, yeah, well, like, how could you do this? And then mum looked at her and said, for my family, like, I had to do it. And they were still so mad at her, but it helped a bit. But yeah, like she was, I remember she was very, very sick when they left. And I guess that's a lesson in itself. Hey, like sometimes God, leads us to move and wants us to make a move even though it's probably the worst time for us. You know what I mean? It's not like it was the perfect time and it felt perfect in terms of her physical health. But when there's that thing, when God's, moving you, it's something. Yeah, you move. You can't. You don't question it. Yeah.
Yeah. So was she sick your whole life? So she was sick your whole life.
Yeah.
Okay. But obviously fluctuates.
Yeah. So you got to. So just before she got sick with TB, tuberculosis. So when she came to Australia, she was on better meds. She got a lot better, and so the first say 8 years of her being here, she was great. She was a lot better. She wasn't as sick. And then ever since 2009, that's when it started again, and it was all downhill from there. Yeah, it deteriorated very quickly from there.
Okay. So you guys, your parents lived in Iraq. They go to Iran. Your mum gets sick as she has you. 5 years later, let's say you all go to Australia.
Yeah, well, yeah, basically. Over 2 trips.
Yeah. But you all come to Australia. Your mum is still sick, and you would say, how old were you when your mum got tuberculosis?
I was in year 9.
Year 9.
So
okay.
What's that?
Like 10 years after you got
to
Australia?
Yeah. 9 years after we came here.
So you...
Like what, 15?
Yeah.
9 is 15 years old, yeah.
Yeah, so you're 15 when she gets tuberculosis.
2019. End of October 2019. So that was 10 years after that.
It was 10 years of suffering with tuberculosis. Yep. Okay.
No. Tuberculosis was like 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah, because then for them to treat that, remember they had to stop the kidney medications.
Right,
but once they stopped the kidney medications, they treated that. It was fine. And then, but then she went back to dialysis, and the kidneys were the main issues again.
All right, and that's when the back and everything started.
That's
happening.
right.
Okay,
that's when it started happening.
So pretty much 10 years of really bad suffering, you would say. Mm-hmm. That's wild. Yeah. So we've spoken about your mother and that stuff, but we haven't really spoken about you. So how did all of this sort of affect you, change your course? And we spoke about it a little bit, but change the course of your life, change your way of thinking, get you close to God, if it did. How's your faith during times of struggle?
I think what's interesting about that is the way that it affected me the most wasn't just about my career. Like, that's not important. The way it affected me the most was change the way that I see God, in terms of just magnifying him so much more. Like, I grew up in a Christian family. Like, I knew God my whole life, right? But it's different knowing God and experiencing God, knowing about God and actually experiencing him. Even if it's, through her. But obviously that affected me a lot, because I was, like I said, I was the closest with Mum. We used to sleep in the same room. Like, I was very close with Mum till the very end. So it was the biggest impact on me was just the biggest impact it can have is just literally changed me completely. The way I think, the way I see God, the way I, think about life and struggles and situations and problems and hardships. It's like, I don't know, how do you put it? It's like, I don't know. It's like now you've seen what God can do in one of the biggest and most amazing ways. Then you kind of have this high, like awe of God, this awe of God, and this
fear.
Yeah, fear exactly. It's like this fear that this loving fear though, after all that, because you know why? One of the reasons that it's made me love God even more is that, it's crazy, but just because of how much God comforted her in that struggle where, we would try everything we could to make it better for her. But really the thing that comforted her, truly was her faith in God and her relationship with God. You know, that's what gave her that's what brought her the joy. And I think like for me that like, because she was she's the one I love the most, then whatever makes them, whatever makes that person the happiest and the most joyful, then you love that. Like I'm so grateful for God for how much he helped her through all this, and you could see it, like, everything was based on that. Like everything was like he was the foundation of it. So I think that's a big thing is like, and that obviously for me, it's like you learn to trust God. Like when you go through things like that, trusting God suddenly isn't as hard because you can see what he can do. You're not trusting a friend or, even family. You're trusting the Almighty, like the guy who's in control of everything, the most powerful. So it's like, well, yeah, why wouldn't you? After that, it's like you can't not,
It's crazy because like the natural response you would think to something like that happening is actually be like, God, how can you let this happen, sort of thing. But the fact that you came out of that with a perspective of like, God, wow, you are amazing. Like I've seen what you can do. I've seen like your comforting hand. I've seen your wrath. I've seen it all. And then that builds like a love or a reverence for God. It's like,
because you know what? It's
amazing.
It's like we know suffering, like pain and suffering is part of this world. It's a fallen world. We know that's part of it. But what I experienced was not just seeing the suffering, but I'm seeing the work that was going into it. Like I was seeing God working through her life in ways that you wouldn't imagine. And so my perspective of God wasn't the suffering, but the holding her hand through it. You know what I mean? So yeah. So that's a massive thing. Like it's just built this trust in God where I know no matter what I go through, no matter what we go through in life, like there's someone who knows what he's doing. So it's weird, but it sometimes makes you feel like, yeah, it's all good. Like, I just got to keep going through this and I know that it's going to be all right. There's going to be some positive from this, even if I don't see it, but I know there's going to be something maybe for someone else, so that changed me a lot. And I think also obviously, when you asked about how it affected me, just, obviously, like I said, trusting him, but then it's like, I learned how much, like how important it is to like in that suffering, her reliance wasn't on the doctors, wasn't on any person or any medication or anything like that. It was always God. Like, we'd go to appointments with surgeons. They'd be like, look, this is really hard. It might not work, this and that. Like obviously it would hurt, but it would be like, at the end of the day, I know. Like at the end of the day, I know that if God wants this to happen, it'll happen, But yeah, so that's something. But I mean, I don't know, just thinking back about everything, especially also because it was like a lot of my childhood, like I didn't even have time to go partying and things like that. I had something, like I had to be there. I had to help look after mum and I think that was really special because it really, like, I didn't go through this stage where I was distant with family and then realized that's more important. I was fortunate enough. I was blessed in that I was always very close with family. And I think that really shaped me now. It's shaped me because now like we were saying before, that's one of the most important things to me is my family and future family. So I think it really helped put things into perspective in not just family, but just life in general. What's important, what's not.
Do you think you would have been able to have this perspective if this stuff in your life didn't happen?
I honestly think I would have because of like because of mum and things like that, with how she would have brought us up, but it's a different level.
Yeah, different.
You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
It's a very different level because, you know, like, let's say that example about how important family is. Well, the way we were growing up, like the way my parents brought us up, was that family was the most important, you know, obviously besides God. That was, you know, this is your family. This is your people. So it was always going to be like that, but it was a whole nother level. Like, it was different.
It's crazy.
It's different.
So there are other points that you've put down. I feel like we've covered them all. Faith during times of struggle, trusting God's greater plan. Have we gone through? Like, we have a little bit. But so this is the things that you wrote down, and things that you would want to talk about. So trusting God's greater plan. How does that? What does that mean to you after the whole situation that you've been in? I mean, what is the greater plan that you were trusting in, or what is the greater plan that you are trusting in, or is it just something that you don't really know?
I think the simplest way I can think of it or explain it is God has, you know, we were saying like how God is so much bigger than us, so much more powerful and knowledgeable and wise, and, you know, all of those characteristics, so much more than us. So then if we truly believe that, then we also would naturally you'd have to believe that whatever you're experiencing now isn't the biggest thing. Like, it might not be the end goal. You know what I mean? It might not be the final point. So God's greater plan, what I mean by that is, you know, it's greater because it's God's plan, first of all, but most of the time it's probably something we would not expect. It's something that we can't comprehend. Like, never in a million years would I be like, through that situation, through that time with experiencing mum's suffering, that I'd be like, oh yeah, like this is because of this, and that's going to do this, and this is going to lead to this. There's no way, because we can't think like that. You know, I can't think of that person that's going to, you know, one day hear about this, or, you know, one day speak to mum about this, and that's going to affect them this. Like, there's no way. We can't make those connections. So naturally, God is so much greater than us, and His plans would be so much greater than us. And I think like that's comforting, because like that's comforting for me, you know, because I know that, you know, what I like my you know, what I'm experiencing now with the issues with this particular side of work, or you know, this rejected job application, or whatever it might be, as hard as it might be now, I've got to believe that, you know, there's something bigger, there's something else. Good. Yeah.
That's so cool. Trusting in God's plan is just, it's just so like I'll bring up David again. It's like, I'm sure he never thought that he would be a king when he was, I don't know how old he was, but like 16 years old. He was, I don't know, just the shepherd and just fighting lions and bears. Yeah, like, I'm sure he just trusted in God, and like, obviously one day he was king. I guarantee.
Imagine that, right? Like, what? Imagine if you were in that. There's no way you would think that.
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah,
there's no way you think you're gonna fight a giant.
Imagine going through that and being like, you know what? Don't worry, it's all good. One day I'm gonna be king. Like, no way. Yeah. You know, one of my favorite stories in the Bible is Joseph. You know, and it's very similar in that way, where he goes through so much, you know, but he never disobeys God, or he never loses trust in Him. You know, and that's a perfect example of trusting in God's plan. And for him, that might have just been being saved from the hole. You know what I mean? Like, it might have just been being reunited with his dad. Yeah. But who would have thought that, you know, his you know, journey would end up to where it was, where he was in such power, a position of high regard by Pharaoh. You know what I mean? The most powerful person in there.
It's actually like Joseph. Like all these stories are crazy, but if you think about Joseph, he probably was just thinking like, I just want to survive.
Yeah, I just want to get out. I just want to live.
Yeah, and even if he didn't, he'd be like, all right, well, it's God's plan. Like,
exactly.
Like it's so.
See, that's taking it another level. Hey,
Yeah.
it's not like because what I was saying before, you know what? I take it back. It wasn't that. I think, you know what? I'm going to retract my statement. I feel like trusting in God's greater plan is being like, even if I were to die right now, even if this was to lead to my death, then I'm content. Then I know that it's okay, that this is God's plan. I know, like I've released all control. I've released all, control over everything. Even if this was to lead to my death, that's fine.
Yeah. And I think,
wow.
I think
it's crazy.
The way to get to that point is actually like make sure you're doing what you need to be doing. Because I think that's the difference, right? If I'm not doing what God is telling me to do or what I believe I need to do, then that is such a different perspective, because it's like then I'm gonna be like, I'm not going to be fulfilled in what I've done already. Like, bring it back to what you said of like, I want to know that the last day I've lived is like, or I've done what I need to do. But I think it's crazy, because it's like when each day we need to feel like I've done what I need to do, so that when we go to heaven, something Fadi always says, like, if I die now, will God say like, will God say, well done, good and faithful servant? Yeah, and that's the goal. Bro, but that's where I want to be each day. Like I want to reach the end of today and be like, and I'll say this confidently, that's not how it was today. I napped for 3 hours. I'm joking. Napping is fine.
I think that's you need that.
But it was like,
yeah.
Am I gonna end the day of like, I can go home now and be satisfied with what I just did. Like, and I pray that I reach that moment.
You know it's funny you say that, about well done, good and faithful servant, because I remember when Mum passed away, that came to mind, man. It's like I just imagined, when God would see her, and I really believe that. Like I believe that, like from, bro, like it's, I don't know, I just felt like that would be what God would say to her. And ever since then, I can honestly say that's when it was like I wish I could do that. I wish I could reach that level where it's like I've done everything in that day. But you know what? I feel like for us to have that, what we were saying before about being able to trust in God's greater plan, I think for us to be able to reach that level, it's as simple as the fact that we need to experience Him. Do you know what I mean? Because if you experience God in that way, like if you experience God in your life, truly experience Him, then that becomes so much easier. Hey, like for example, with Mum, it wasn't like she was going through the worst times in her life, but she never lost that trust in God and the trust in God's plan, because she experienced Him her whole life. She's been through other things her whole life, and she knows, like, He's come through. He knows what He's doing. So if we experience Him every day, and that's basically just spending time with Him, right?
Yeah.
If we're experiencing Him every day, then that's gonna help us get to that stage.
I like how you say experiencing Him and not experiencing like suffering or something, because the truth is we only need to experience Him.
That's right.
I think the reason why He allows suffering is so that we can not experience suffering, but experience Him.
Yeah, it gives us that opportunity to be able to experience God.
If we were able to just like that, the reason why I asked you before of like, do you think you would be able to like learn if you didn't go through that, or like get to a point of where you are now if you didn't go through that? I think as humans, it's annoying, but I think we can't just look at someone else's experience. Like, we have the whole Bible with it. They've all been through everything we've been through, but we can't just be like, wow, like I'm sure we can sort of empathize or even sympathize.
Yeah.
Like we'd be like, oh wow, that's crazy. Like,
yeah.
But we won't. And I hate the fact that this is like
The case.
how I am. But, I mean, it makes sense. It's just like we sort of have to do. We have to get.
Yeah.
We have to experience it firsthand. Especially, I think. I don't know if this is right, but I think as a young male, it's just like you. Like that's why if you tell a young male like don't go into the world, don't do drugs, it's like, well, the initial thing is like that's actually what I want to try to. I'm going to go experience it for myself. I mean, everyone that's been through it has told you it's not worth it, it's not good.
That's right.
But it's
like, you won't. Yeah, you won't. You won't really believe that. It's like how many times have we read Joseph's story or David's story? But does that mean that every situation in our lives from then on, after we read that we're like, yep, no, I'm trusting in God? No way. You won't. Yeah, you're right. It's just how we are as humans. We need to experience it to a level ourselves.
Yeah, and it's I love that you said it's to experience God, because like that's the only reason that we actually go through suffering. And when we experience God, it's like we are reaching the next level, which is the highest level is perfection, and we're trying to reach perfection. And we know that we're actually going to reach it one day when we are with Him. But that's when we actually do die on earth and live in heaven, which is but
imagine we did that. Hey, like imagine every situation we go through, we actually felt, you know what, this is bringing me closer to God. This is helping me experience God and His love and His wisdom and His power. Like, we won't do that every time, but if we did, how much easier would that situation be?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, and yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that I got from all those years of partly experience what Mum went through, and going through that with her. It's like, yeah, like I feel like. But you know what? We also got to. This is what I struggle with sometimes. Is sometimes I'm like a bit too much. Like, yeah, like that's all right. You know what I mean? Like I need to get stressed a little bit. Like,
oh, that's so funny.
There's like two extremes, like where you're completely, like you don't want to be like, oh, I don't trust God. Like you want to have that trust, but you also, you want to feel, have emotion.
Yeah, it's funny because I think it was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I won't say who they were because I feel bad for saying. I was like, this is fine.
Yeah.
But they were saying like, oh, we're all stressed. And I was like, no, I don't get stressed.
Yeah.
And then he just looked at me. He's like, I forgot what he said exactly, but he's like pretty much like, you're a maniac. What are you talking about? You don't get
what's
stressed.
Wrong with you? You can't be human. You're not human.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes maybe we can have a bit more urgency.
Yeah, like, that's the thing, the urgency.
When I said this on a podcast, but when I got sick, like when I vomited blood, my mom was like, we need to go. And I was just like walking over there. I was putting my shoes on for like, I was checking my phone. I was like, we need to go. And I was like, it's fine.
But see, like that's the thing. Like, and I think sometimes like this is something I'm learning actually, is that I've been working on that, is like not making it, trying to show to other people who are going through that, is like trying to show them that I do care about this. I get it. But it's going to be okay because of X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because then otherwise we just look like we don't care about anything. Like it's not good. So yeah, because I know you're like that because you're very chill. Like you're, yeah. So
I feel like I just don't care about like
anything.
No, because like I don't know. It's a weird one because I feel like if you know me, you will understand that sometimes I care too much, but it's like, but also it doesn't make sense.
But it depends on what, though.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
It does depend on.
That's the thing.
I don't care enough about myself.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah. Like if we see, I think that's the goal, though, is that knowing like what is important, what's not, knowing what we should get stressed about, when we should have that urgency for, and what not. Because like that's one of the biggest things right now in this world, is that people get stressed. They have anxiety. They develop, all these issues because of life, right? And it's fair enough, but I think that's one thing that can help us in that is just trying to take ourselves out of that position, out of that situation, be like, you know what? Just remember the fundamentals. Remember, what the foundation is, and that's God. If you remember that, it makes it so much easier.
To bring it full circle, is we go through, like, life goes so fast, but what we need to do is actually wait. Like, we actually need to wait, and that's bringing it full circle, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like, waiting will actually do that, and it'll bring all this stress to a pause where you can actually finally be like, okay, life may be going ahead. To be honest, life actually doesn't go that fast, but it's like we sort of put in that, especially in the world we live in. It's like, oh, it's going so fast. People are changing, people are doing this and this and this. If you just stop and pause, spend time with God, that's when you actually understand, okay, wow, I'm actually growing more than I ever have. And I've always tried to become a better version of myself. I've always tried to further ahead in my career or find a partner or whatever it is. But when you wait, you understand like the thing that you care for will change. Like the things that you should be caring for will become more prominent. The things that you shouldn't really be caring for becomes less prominent. And that's when the anxiety calms down. And I think, it's funny because when you say wait, it's like, it's very specific the way that I think we're talking about waiting. It's not just being like not doing anything, sitting down, but it's like being active in God, being less active in the world. And like we said,
not relying on ourselves.
And we need to do that daily. And I think that's when quiet time comes in, and I think that's why it says, "Be still."
Yes,
know that I am God.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Is there? We can go a lot more, but I'm thinking maybe we save it for our next time. The next time, I guess. Because I
only just realized the time.
It's 7:47, and I invited people at my house at 7:30.
So if you're outside, sorry.
Actually, people probably here. Yeah. So we should end. But is there anything that you want to end with? Yeah, we'll save the rest for another time.
I think
Pioneer on this one.
Look, I think if you don't watch any of this at all, you can get a lot by just remembering that God is in control. He's far greater than we can ever understand. He's far greater than our problems, our circumstances, our troubles, our illnesses, our disabilities, our pain, our suffering. He's far greater. And we could just leave it at that. Like, if you just remember that, then everything will become so much easier. Whether it's your stress, whether it's your anxiety, whether it's your, finding your purpose, whether it's, decisions, big life decisions about what to do next, and your path in life, your future, your career, your family, your relationships. If you just remember that God knows what he's doing, he has a plan, and that plan is good. Do you know what I mean? Not just he's got a plan, but that plan is good.
It's like good. It's like
it's perfect. Yeah. But like, it's perfect, and it's better than what you could ever expect. And not just for you, but for a lot of people. And it could be for anyone, for other people. Then how much easier will our troubles be?
Yeah. Amen.
So keep trusting in God. I think that's the biggest thing. And let him guide you. And for that to happen, experience him, spend time with him. Fellowship, spend time with godly people, godly friends. Spend time, fellowshipping at a church, a local church. I think that's all of those things together help you to realize who we serve and who our God is.
Amen. That's a teaser for next time, I think, because the things that you want to talk about next. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. It's been awesome. This is cool. Time has flown.
Yeah, but
I did not.
Every time. Well, thank you all for watching. I hope and I pray that it has been beneficial to you. I've been really praying for this podcast that it could be used for God's glory, and I think that more than ever recently it has been. Praise God for that. But yeah, thank you again for coming on.
No, thank you.
Thank you all for watching. We're very close to 100 subscribers. If you'd like to,
I'll subscribe then.
No, the thing is, like, I know people just don't subscribe. I genuinely couldn't care less, but I'm like, yeah, we're close, so why not?
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Why not?
So yeah, if you're watching this,
no one's watching.
Yeah, what do you mean? You better watch. No, like, share, and subscribe, and comment, and do all of those good things.
What should they comment if they reach this point? Don't go comment on Instagram. Comment on YouTube, or if you're watching on Spotify. Can you comment on Spotify?
I don't think. Oh, can you? I think you can. I've never commented on Spotify.
If you're watching on Spotify, then you can comment on Instagram, but still go to YouTube and just comment on YouTube.
What should they comment so we can see who reached this point?
Yeah. You say something.
Oh. What was it?
I'm the best.
Yeah. Where is it?
The top right.
What? Oh yeah, bro, I got to turn properly. Comment, I'm the best. If you don't know, that's what Lordy commented on her snapshot. So comment, I'm the best. Love heart. If you've reached this stage. If you haven't, I get it. I'm sorry.
If you're driving as well, don't comment it until you stop
why
driving.
Not? Show us your skills. If you get pulled over, don't mention this.
It's like, I was watching Jonah the pod, and they'll understand, and they won't find you.
They'll be like, they might subscribe as well. Then we can reach 100.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Marco. Thank you all for watching or listening or whatever it is. Yeah.
Cool.
I think it's good.
Cool.
All right. Peace.